Hello friends, I hope you all are doing well and staying safe at your own place. I, C.A. Pujin Kapadia, welcome you all on my today's lecture on the subject Banking Paper 6. Friends, we had started with the topic of non-performing asset in our previous lectures, under which we had started with introduction in which I had discussed several points. First of all, the RBI introduced NPA norms under the recommendation of one committee. The name of that committee was Narasimha Rao Committee. Second, there were certain prudential norms which were being laid down with respect to three things. First was with respect to income recognition, that is when to recognize your income. Second was asset classification, which we had dealt with in the later slides of this particular unit. And the third is provisions on advances by the bank. That is how to make the provisions on the assets if they are considered as a doubtful when. So basically in this particular part, we had discussed the name of the committee, that is Narasimha Rao, the prudential norms, and then we had considered that how to classify the assets and how to make the provisions. This was just the introduction. Secondly, we had started with the term meaning. Under this, first of all, I had explained you like what is the asset for the bank. So we had understood in this particular part that if the bank is giving any kind of loan or advancing any kind of money, then this is going to be the asset for the bank. So basically, savings deposit, fixed deposit, the money which is being deposited by the investors in the bank is the liability for the bank. And on the other side, if the bank is providing any loan to its customer, then it is going to be their asset. So what is NPA? That is non-performing asset. So I have written over here, when an asset ceases to generate income, that is when the income is stopped being generated from a particular asset, that is your asset is becoming non-productive, then such kind of asset is known as non-performing asset. Technically speaking, we need to remember just one thing, that if the overdue is for more than 90 days, fine. So 90 days is something that is important for you to remember. So if the overdue exceeds 90 days, then you are going to consider that particular asset as a non-performing asset. And lastly, what is important over here is that banks are required to make provisions as per the prudential norms that we had discussed in the earlier slide for the accounts which are classified as NPA. NPA, friends, is not a good sign for the bank. So banks always try to keep NPA at the minimum possible level, because lesser the NPA, better will be the profits for the bank. I hope I'm clear with this particular slide also. Then we had started the topic of identification of non-performing assets. That is how to identify that a particular asset is being considered as a non-performing one. So for the different types of loans or facilities, the criteria are quite mentioned over here. First of all, it is for the term loan. That is a loan which is having a specific time period, under which we had studied that if the interest and or the total amount of installment remains overdue for more than 90 days. So here it is simple. If your overdue is more than 90 days, then you are going to consider that particular term loan as a non-performing asset. Second is the case of cash credit or overdraft. As I have told you, that you are getting a particular limit that you can do transaction up to that particular limit. No matter if you are not having any balance in your account, it is okay, but you can transact up to that particular limit. Such facilities are termed as cash credit or overdraft. I had also explained you the difference between the same. In this particular category, we are going to look at the word out of order. So here, if my account remains out of order for more than 90 days, then I'm going to consider my cash credit or my overdraft as an NPA. Now, it is important over here for us to understand what is out of order. So there are three conditions which are being stated over here. The first one is if your outstanding balance remains constantly in excess of the sanction limit or drawing power. That is, suppose I was being sanctioned a limit of rupees 1 lakh rupees and the outstanding balance is always 1.5 lakh or 2 lakh rupees. So in this particular case, I am overdrawing my account above and over my limit. Then this is the case that my account is out of order. If not, then we are going to check the second criteria. under which it is written if there are no credits for more than 90 days in the account. So if there is no credit entry in your account for more than 90 days, you are going to consider it as an out of order. Let's take that it is also not the case. Then we are going to go to the third point, which states that credits are there in your account, but it is not sufficient enough to cover the interest debited for the same period. So here I am having credit entries in my account, but those entries, that amount is not sufficient enough to cover the amount debited in the name of interest. So in this particular scenario, my account will be considered as an out of order. And if it is out of order for more than 90 days, we will say that our cash credit or the overdraft account is NPA, that is non-performing asset. Next was bill discounted. So in this we have understood if the bill remains overdue for a discounted period of more than 90 days, then you are going to consider it as an NPA. And the last thing that you need to learn was agricultural advances. In case of agricultural loans, broadly we had divided entire thing into two parts, that is short duration crops and long duration crops. If there is a short duration crops which is having a production cycle, we can say that the crop is growing twice in a year, like vegetables. Fine, there are many vegetables which are growing in winter as well as in summer. Now if I have given any kind of loan for short duration crops, then I need to consider two crop seasons. That is, if the amount of installment, maybe in principal, maybe interest, or both, if it is remaining overdue for more than two crop seasons, then we are going to say that it is NPA. And in case of long duration crops, for example mango, which is grown only once in a year, the overdue period is 1 year. That is, if your overdue stays for more than one crop season, then you are going to say that it is your NPA. So just need to remember, in case of agricultural advances, for short duration crops it is two crop seasons, and for long duration crops it is one crop season. I hope you are clear with the identification of non-performing assets. Next topic that we had covered in the last lecture was classification of assets, that is classification of NPA. I had just told you in my last lecture that assets can be broadly classified into two categories, that is performing asset and non-performing asset. First of all, the first type which is being mentioned over here is standard asset. It is a part of your performing asset. What is standard asset? Those assets which are regular in paying interest and installments, which means there is no overdue. As and when my installment is becoming due, my customer is duly paying installment amount. So it is going regularly. Such kind of assets are known as standard asset or performing asset. Then comes NPA, that we all know that if my account is overdrawn for a period of more than 90 days, then I am going to consider it as a non-performing asset. Now in the case of non-performing asset, based on the time period, we can broadly classify it into three further types, which are substandard, doubtful, and loss. First of all, let us take what is substandard asset. An account which is NPA up to 12 months. So just understand over here. First of all, it takes 90 days to become an account to be NPA, that is 3 months. Now, after becoming an NPA, if my account is still overdue up to the period of 12 months, then for that particular period, that account will be considered as a substandard asset. So it is basically 12 months from account being parked as an NPA. Next is doubtful asset. Doubtful assets are furthermore classified into three further categories, like up to 1 year, 1 year to 3 years, and 3 years and above. So basically we are going to take NPA as a base. So from the date the account was classified as an NPA, from that date up to 24 months, then it is going to be termed as doubtful up to 1 year. Over 24 months up to 48 months, 1 year to 3 years, and above 48 months it is going to be 3 years and above. So these are the broader classification of doubtful assets. And the last one is loss asset, under which I had mentioned that if an asset is identified as a loss asset with a little salvage value, which means I know that this loan account is not going to be recovered, or very negligible amount can be recovered from this particular account, then any of the four authorities which are being mentioned below can identify that asset as a loss asset. Those authorities are internal auditor, external auditor, RBI, or that bank itself. So any of this person, if they feel that no amount is going to be recoverable from this particular asset, then they have a right, they have the authority to classify that particular asset as the loss asset. So This was about the classification of asset or the classification of non-performing asset. I hope I'm clear with this. So this is what, friends, we had covered till now in all our previous lectures. Let's start with the next part. The heading of this is types of NPA ratio. So basically we all talk about like this bank is having this much NPA, this bank is having this much NPA. So now how we are supposed to calculate NPA. So for this we are going to use NPA ratio, that is non-performing asset ratio. Now broadly there are two types of NPA ratio. One is gross NPA and second is net NPA. Let's understand first the gross NPA ratio. The formula of gross NPA ratio is gross NPA divided by gross advances multiplied by 100. Now, first of all, let me explain you what is the meaning of gross. Gross over here means total, aggregate. So, in the numerator, what I'm taking total amount of non-performing assets of a bank for a particular period for which you are calculating the ratio. Suppose I'm calculating the ratio for the month of March 2020 and I'm going to consider the total NPA for March 2020 divided by gross advances, that is the total amount of loan which is outstanding as on March 2020. So basically we are considering two important points. First is total amount which is being recognized as a non-performing asset, and second denominator, that is our base, it is the total amount of loan that we are having outstanding, that we have given to our customers. Now by doing this particular thing, I am going to multiply the same with 100, and so I am going to get the answer in form of gross NPA ratio. So what we are doing, we are taking gross NPA, that is total amount of NPA, as the numerator, and total amount of loans or advances that we have given during a particular period as a denominator. By solving this equation, we are going to get the answer of gross NPA ratio. I hope I'm clear with this. Second comes the net NPA ratio. Now, before starting net NPA ratio, let me make you clear these terms. Like, what is net NPA? We know what is gross NPA. It is the total amount of NPA. If I'm deducting provisions from this particular figure, then I'm getting net NPA. Now, just let me clear you out. When we were studying the introduction slide, we had talked about prudential norms with respect to income recognition, asset classification, and provisions, under which I had explained that like doubtful debts or debtors, when I feel that some amount is not going to be recovered from the debtor, what I do, I create a provision for the doubtful debts. In the same manner, when I classify my asset as an NPA, and if I feel that certain amount is not recoverable from this particular account, or there are chances that I may not receive my installment amount, then bank also make a provision on that particular asset following the prudential norms which are being laid down by the RBI. So yes, these are our assets and we make provisions on that particular part. So what I'm doing over here is, first of all, I'm taking my gross NPA amount, that is my total NPA, from which I'm deducting the amount of provisions. Fine. So what I'm getting at the result, net NPA. So basically what is net NPA? It is the net resultant figure that we get after deducting provisions from the total non-performing assets. Next term is net advances. What is net advances? It is your gross advances minus provisions. So you can see in the numerator as well as in the denominator, we are deducting the same amount of provisions that we have created on our non-performing asset. So the formula of net NPA ratio is net NPA divided by net advances multiplied by 100. So what is the difference between the formula A and formula B is, in formula A, we are not considering the provisions that we have made for our non-performing assets, but in formula B, we are duly considering the provisions that we have made on our NPA accounts. So friends, this is just for your information that when the question comes like types of NPA ratio, then you need to write this two types, that is gross NPA ratio and net NPA ratio. Whenever we talk, suppose NPA for XYZ bank is 5%. So basically what is this 5%? It is the answer which is being derived by using this particular formula. I hope I'm clear with this. I'm just giving you a moment. Take a view on both the formulas and kindly understand the same. Well, I hope you are clear with both the ratios that I have mentioned on this particular slide. Yes. So we had discussed what is gross NPA ratio and what is net NPA ratio. Now let's start with the next question. The heading of this topic is factors affecting NPA. That is, now we have talked and we have understood what is NPA. NPA is basically when I have given loan to my customer and my customer is not paying me either the entire amount of installment or the principal or the interest for a period of more than 90 days, then I'm going to classify that particular asset as a non-performing asset. Now we are going to deal in detail like what all are the factors that lead to NPA. So why I am having NPA in my bank? So there are many factors. Broadly, I had classified these factors into 2 points. One is internal factors and second is external factors. Today we are going to start with the topic internal factors. First of all, first factor that I have mentioned on your table is improper SWOT analysis. First of all, let me explain you the full form of SWOT. It stands for strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat. I'm repeating it once again. SWOT, SWOT analysis stands for strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Now, what I'm going to deal with over here is whenever a customer is coming to me to take loan, first of all, what I should do is I should go for his SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis of his business. Like what are the strengths of his business? What are the weaknesses of his business? In the coming time, how his business can grow, or what are the factors that are going to roughly affect this particular business. If I'm taking due care of this SWOT analysis of all my customers to whom I'm lending the money, I can get a rough idea whether I should lend money to this customer or not, because I had totally analyzed his business from all the perspective. But these days, maybe because of lack of time or overburden in the loan departments, managers generally avoid doing SWOT analysis. Again, this is basically subjective, but most of the times what we observe is that there is a high backlog, as a result of which generally bankers avoid doing SWOT analysis and they generally follow the policy which are being directly laid down by the respective bank. Now in this particular case, what happens, even if there is weakness, if I have not done this SWOT analysis, I won't be able to catch that particular weakness, and that could be the reason because of which my customer may not be able to pay his installment amount, leading it to NPA. So the first and the foremost thing that is the factor is improper SWOT analysis. So it is highly recommended that whenever you are getting any file for loan purposes, you as a banker should do a proper SWOT analysis of that particular case, so that you are well aware that what are the strengths, what are the weakness, what are the future opportunities, and what can be the potential threats to that particular business. And you can ensure that even in the worst situation, your client is in a situation that he is going to repay your amount of installment, and only then you can take the decision whether to give loan to this particular client or not. Second point that I have used over here is non-use of technology like MIS. MIS basically management information system. In this particular thing, what they are trying to say over here is, for example, if in 2010 a customer is coming to me to take two-wheeler loan, now in 2020 maybe he has earned good amount in this 10 year and he's again coming to me to take a car loan. Now what am I doing is, I am not looking at any information that was available to me for 2010, and I'm considering this case as a fresh case, and directly on the present scenario I'm giving him funding in 2020 for the car loan. I hope you are clear with the example. So what is the scenario till now? That a customer has taken two-wheeler loan from me in 2010, and now again he is coming in 2020 to take a car loan. I'm not considering any data of past. I am just looking at the present scenario and I'm upfrontly giving him the loan as per his present financial situation. Now, if I would have looked into the data of 2010 two-wheeler loan, I came to know that there were totally 24 EMIs which he was supposed to pay, of which he was not able to pay on time 15 EMIs. Now just imagine, out of 24 EMIs, he was not able to pay 15 EMIs on time. That means he was having any issue in paying that amount. Now just imagine, the installment of two-wheeler loan may be of 5,000 rupees and the installment of car loan is going to be 20,000 rupees. Now the person who was incapable to pay 5,000 rupees, there should be a question in my mind as a manager that how he will be able to pay 20,000 rupees. Now, if I would had the information of that particular client for 2010, if I would have used that particular technology, I would have come to know that this customer of mine was already facing an issue. So I should check at 2020 that whether that particular issue is resolved or not. If he's out of that particular issue, then I can consider the present scenario and give him the appropriate loan amount. But if he's still stuck in that particular issue of 2010, it won't be the right decision to give loan to this particular customer. So how can you get information about this is by using the technology, by using all your information system, the data that you have with you yourself. As a result of which, it is highly recommended to rely on the technology and to use all the past data if you are having with respect to particular customer, because any of the mishappening in the past may be easily be covered up, or you can easily come to know about that particular thing in present only if you are looking at that particular data. So yes, second factor that is being a factor for NPA is non-use of this technology like MIS, that is Management Information System. Third word, inadequate networking between banks. That is, example is credit information report. What I've written over here is there is not a proper networking, or you can say not a proper formal communication between the banks. For example, there are two banks, Bank X and Bank Y. Now there is customer who has already taken a home loan from Bank X. Now he is going to Bank Y to take a car loan. Now, if I am having a good tie-up, a gelling with Bank X, then what I could have done is I could have sent a credit information report asking for the information of the home loan from Bank X. Now, if Bank X is going to tell me about the performance of that home loan, then I can easily come to know that whether all the EMIs are being paid regularly, or is there any mishappening, or you can say, is there any delay in the payment of EMIs. But what is the scenario over here? Sometimes there is no proper networking between two banks. As a result of which, if a customer is coming to me, I am Bank Y, and if the customer is coming to me to take a loan, it is not possible for me to connect to Bank X. So just imagine the situation. If I could have known about the performance of the home loan, it would have helped me to take the decision with respect to give him car loan or not. But here I'm not having any tie-up with Bank X, so it is not possible for me to know about how he is churning, how he is serving his home loan. As a result of which, it won't be possible for me to get the idea that whether he is regularly repaying his EMIs of home loan or not. So what I'm trying to say over here is many a times there is no proper network between the banks, as a result of which you cannot get the proper concrete information of that particular customer, which may lead to wrong decisioning, which may lead to NPA. So yes, the third point over here, which is again an internal factor. See, internal factors are those factors which you can do as your own business, but you are not able to do that. Fine. So internal factors means such factors which are going to be implemented by the bank itself. So yes, three things we have covered till now. First was improper SWOT analysis. That is, you are not analyzing the strength, weakness, opportunity and threats of the customer and directly giving them funding. Second is non-use of past data. Our example of 2010 and 2020, two-wheeler loan and car loan. So you should properly use the technology. You should use all the data which is being available to you so that you can take the rational decision with respect to either to give loan or not. And the third is there should be a proper networking between the banks. If a customer is taking loans from two banks, a bank should have an idea that how the second loan is going on with the another bank. If there are problems in the second loan itself, it is not advisable to give that customer more loans. Fine. As a result of which, there should be a proper networking. In absence of the same, there are high chances that you may end up in an NPA accounts. So I would like to take a pause over here for today. We would be continuing the same answer in our upcoming lecture. Till then, I, CA Pujan Kapadia, thank you all for your patient listening and definitely hope to see you soon in my upcoming lecture. Thank you, friends.